Hi, and thanks for watching this short video, which is the latest in a series of thought leadership pieces produced and released by us at Odgers Berndtson in partnership with select industry leaders and subject matter experts. I'm Adam Fairbrother. I'm a partner with Odgers Berndtson here in the Middle East, based in the UAE. I'm also head of the Aerospace Defence and Security practice for MENA. And I'm delighted and honoured to be joined by Sascha Rodenberg, who's a leading Middle East defence strategy and management consultant. He's a long-term friend of Odgers Berndtson and me personally. Welcome, Sascha. And before we get cracking with the interview, a few words about Sascha. His early career combined technology consulting roles with 11 years of duty in the US infantry. And then since 2007, he's lived and worked in the Middle East. He's held defense focus roles with a couple of top global strategy houses. And he's also worked in-house for one leading locally owned diverse industrial group where he was strategy director. And it was in that role where I first got to meet Sascha. As you can probably detect, Sascha's strategy consulting experience and exposure to the Middle East defense sector benefits from real hands-on operational experience, which is gained both in the military and in industry. And it's for this reason, amongst others, that I invited him to join today. So let's focus on the main event and the topic in hand. With the rapid acceleration of defense industry localization across the Middle East, an updated playbook is required for organizations both local and international to ensure sustainable business growth. Sascha, what do you see as the key recent and ongoing changes to the MENA defense industry?
Well, first of all, thank you, Adam. That's all very kind words about me. Appreciate that. And it's great to be here with you and to talk about such an interesting topic. It's just good to leave COVID alone for a few minutes even. But as you mentioned, I've been in the region and engaged in the MENA defense sector for just about 14 years. And I have to tell you, the MENA region never stands still. The amount of evolution that I've seen is just too much to account for. And the defense sector has seen much change itself as well. Now, to answer your question, I think I want to highlight two trends today. And these two trends, they apply to the homegrown defense industry and the foreign companies operating in MENA alike. And one is the maturity level of the regional militaries, and two is the evolution of the support that the regional militaries then require of their defense industry. So first, when I came into the region 14 years ago, you could see that many of the militaries have focused on putting in place for the last big building blocks of what makes up a modern military. While each country advanced at its own pace, what they were doing in essence was to put in place the measures to catch up with the more developed militaries. It was really a game of catch up for the most part. And what you saw is that the foreign OEMs, the foreign defense contractors, they were given a lot of access to decision makers, and they were providing input in how to select equipment, what are the pros and cons of different equipments and so forth. And at the same time, foreign defense experts were also brought in to provide advice on what the defense organizations should look like, and to select appropriate doctrine, warfighting doctrine and tactics and so forth. Now, at the same time, the support that the militaries requested from the defense industry was relatively basic. Was provided they need support to keep the platforms operational, supply spare parts, train the operators of the equipment and so forth. And the local companies, be they government-backed or private family businesses, most frequently acted as agents to the OEMs, sometimes exclusive, sometimes not. and sometimes without really adding a whole lot of local value add. So in a way, their role was really to be a conduit for the international defense industry to the regional military buyers.
Thanks, Sascha. The question, if I may, around offset and the role therein. I mean, I've seen offset policies, develop and change significantly in the region in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been here. The focus now being placed on ensuring and affecting long-term technology skills transfer rather than what was the traditional front-end kind of capex heavy investment in bricks, mortar, machinery. In your view, is offset still important today as part of this new defense industry playbook?
Yes, Adam, you're bringing up a very important point. Many of the region's countries have defense offset requirements in their laws. Each country handles it slightly differently, but generally speaking, the offset programs force the foreign OEMs to the table and force them to negotiate and force them to think about ways of minimizing the cost of offsets, create local content and so forth, and in many cases create a local joint venture with a local firm. In the past, it was, you could argue that in some cases these offset rules were followed by the letter and they got the regulators' approvals, but not always necessarily by the meaning and the intent. But nonetheless, offsets and the JVs that were formed under that, they do need to be credited, at least partially, with contributing to the transformation of the local industry, and especially in the defense sector. So when we're talking about playbook, I think what applies to the defense contractors, defense industry in general, applies just the same to any activity that you carry out under the offset program. Now, let me fast forward to today. Today's armed forces have gone through a tremendous organizational evolution. They typically know very well what their assets are, what their strengths are, and most importantly, they know very well what exactly it is that they need next. And as such, their acquisitions today are much more specifically targeted to meet so narrow and well-defined requirements. It's become rare that you see an RFP for these very broad requirements that used to be the case in the past, and like a whole modernization program of a whole armed force or of a whole navy and that sort of thing. Secondly, the regional militaries also have a much clearer understanding of the limitations of foreign designed equipment and warfighting doctrines that were designed for somewhere else and were transferred into the MENA context. At the same time, they're in a position where they're much less likely to compromise. Whereas in the past, they maybe may have made some trade-offs for expediency. Today, not so much. Along with that, we see many robust approaches to requirements definition, which is often paired with a process to formulate industrial participation paths. And the conversations with the OEMs are focusing on what the OEMs can create and innovate rather than what they have in inventory. What products do they have sitting on the shelves in their home countries and they can box up and ship over to the MENA region? It's a very different conversation. It's fundamentally changed from the past. And the reasons for this is that the regional militaries increasingly reach for solutions for which the traditional OEMs and their home country militaries collectively either don't have a requirement or they don't have a solution. So today the militaries are no longer just playing catch up with the West, but they seek to find solutions for challenges that are very particular to the region. Right? And let me put an illustrative example on this. Let's say drone warfare. drone warfare has come of age around the world. Anywhere around the world, all the militaries, they are concerned with it, they're coming up with products and solutions and so forth. But only in the MENA region, with a few exceptions, only in the MENA region would a nation have a need for an always switched on, territorial, end-to-end defense system against a drone threat.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing, you know, is a requirement for each industrial player here, be they local or international, to modify a strategy to deal with a different kind of smarter procurement, to fully understand, people on the ground fully understand an evolving operational requirement, and more of a requirement and a desire to see long-term sustainable partnerships, ensuring this transfer of technology and skills. So I mean, the strategy will be pulled together from headquarters. It will be generated locally in the region, and this will take a different kind of skills and competencies within the teams of the multinational and local defense security players, and a different kind of leadership potentially to develop the cultures and the bench strength to allow businesses to optimize this new strategy. So Sascha, a question, you know, what does this all mean for the human capital development in the MENA defense industry in your view?
Yes, so what does this all mean? So I think overall, you said it very well, but overall I think some of the status quo business will continue to go on as it did before, because largely it works well. You know, some of the MENA countries are some of the biggest defense buyers worldwide, and they have requirements of needs that they're going to continue with that as pretty much the way they have been in the past. But some of the traditional business will go by the wayside, and it will be replaced by new business models, namely to combine globally distributed technology assets for defense technology, for product development. So let's say a MENA government-owned defense contractor may acquire a stake in a South Korean company. I'm making this up as a fictional example, obviously. So may acquire a stake in a South Korean company and may contract Brazilian experts alongside a startup research firm from a neighboring country in the region in order to drive a breakthrough in technology for defense application. And some of the traditional government contractors, defense contractors, the big names, some of them are maybe not very comfortable in that role to do a lot of at-risk innovation and product development work. Much of their intellectual property comes from government-funded development work. Plus, their compliance programs may also have need to sort of catch up with a new reality. So let me get precise and get back to your question. What does it really mean? I see 5 characteristics that you will see be in larger demand among the leadership teams of the MENA defense companies, be those government-owned, local family business, or OEMs operating on the ground in the MENA region. One is somebody's got to be in there who's highly entrepreneurial, can drive an entrepreneurial agenda, and is comfortable with the ambiguity and the business risk of a highly entrepreneurial approach. Secondly, you're going to have innovation managers. So innovation is a finite discipline. It needs to be managed. It needs to be driven properly, and you'll have an increased demand for people who've done that before in defense or other environments. Third is you have a much deeper technological depth in order to pragmatically make sense of the big technologies that are emerging. So it isn't just, defense background alone isn't going to suffice. You need that, but you also need to have somebody who can practically work with AI solutions, for instance. So you'll have that on the team. Then a different sense of partnership. Now, partnership has always been the case in the MENA region, right? But I think it's a little bit changing from what used to be, maybe overdrawing this a bit, but sort of, okay, let's make a deal and move on. That's sort of the old model, and let's go more to a model was like, let's make a deal, let's live with that deal, and let's make it work. So it's a slightly different philosophy and perhaps personality that's going to be part of the leadership teams. And last but certainly not least is the cultural diversity. Now, the MENA region has been culturally incredibly diverse for a long time already, but in the business environment, what we're talking about here, I think you see people who can deal with different cultures, completely different engineering standards, different ways of running an operation, running a business, all under one unifying purpose. So people who can do that will be in demand. So if you take those 5 aspects, I think this is what you'll see in the leadership suite of the defense companies in the MENA region going forward.
Yeah, I think I fully agree with that. I mean, we are seeing, Sascha, exactly that. Those 5 key attribute factors played out in the top level defense security searches that Odgers Berndtson are leading across this region, notably in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia, where, you know, we've been placing candidates who are integral to this setting up this nascent defense industry and localization. I mean, if I was to pluck out, I think, a couple of those to highlight, I would suggest that be it a localization hire, or be it a non-local candidate, the cultural diversity factor and the ability to bridge the cultural gap both in and out of the headquarter into the region is absolutely essential. I think that's an evolving factor of leadership. I think the desire today for very strong program management and the ability to deliver on programs, to time, to budget. The defense end user and customer in this region has become, in my view, much smarter. Higher standards, and contracts and commercials are written in such a way that really penalize organizations that do not deliver on time, and so stronger commercial functions as well as leadership are certainly required. And so, I mean, I would absolutely probably agree with all of those 5 for sure. And I think finally the ability to have individuals that can identify, develop, and maintain strong partnerships will be absolutely critical. So thank you for those. I think really spot on. So to conclude then, a really incredible interview, Sascha. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for sharing these really valuable insights with us with such great clarity. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always great to talk to you, Adam. Likewise.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank all of those of you that have clicked to watch this video. If you do have something to say or any comments to add, please feel free to drop us a line or simply leave a comment on the link. And finally, of course, please stay healthy, fit and positive. We're sure we'll be in touch. Stay in contact with Odgers Berndtson, and goodbye for now from myself and Sascha. Thank you.
Goodbye.